Breaking today, popularity ratings for Meghan Markle in her home country of America are absolutely damning.
It does seem to be that it is coming towards the end of their grifts, and they have not got many options left.
So this really is a crisis now.
Something appears to be changing in Meghan Markle's image across America. And this time, the discussion is not being driven by rumors, viral posts, or opinion pieces alone. It is being driven by numbers. New polling results and online traffic data coming out of the United States are painting a picture that looks very different from the carefully polished public image often associated with the Duchess of Sussex. For years, Meghan's post-royal brand has been presented as influential, aspirational, and full of commercial potential. But according to recent figures, the reality may be far more complicated. The latest data points to a gradual decline in both public approval and overall interest. What makes the situation even more interesting is that the trend does not stop there. Meghan's lifestyle brand, as ever, appears to be experiencing a similar slowdown. Website analytics reportedly show fewer American visitors arriving month after month, despite the United States remaining the brand's primary consumer market. That creates an unusual situation where two separate indicators, public sentiment and consumer engagement, seem to be moving in the same direction at the same time. For critics, that overlap is difficult to ignore, but the conversation has now expanded beyond traffic reports and polling numbers. A second controversy is gaining momentum alongside the data, and it centers on the role major media outlets may play in shaping Meghan Markle's public image. One publication keeps finding itself at the center of that debate, People magazine. For years, People has been one of Meghan's most reliable sources of positive coverage. Yet some critics argue that in 2026, the quantity and tone of that coverage have reached a completely different level. The stories are rarely focused on major political influence, groundbreaking achievements, or industry-changing projects. Instead, they often spotlight lifestyle topics, fashion choices, personal moments, and carefully curated glimpses into everyday life. Readers are regularly presented with stories about Meghan's wardrobe, home decor, kitchen preferences, and lifestyle branding. Even relatively small appearances or product mentions can quickly become full-feature articles. According to commentators who have tracked the coverage, more than 100 Meghan-related articles have reportedly appeared during 2026 alone. Critics argue that while the headlines may change, the message often remains remarkably consistent.
People have lost interest in them. They've lost respect in them. I mean, the crowds that she drew from, going over to Geneva to be taken seriously, talking about child online safety. And I mean, in the same 12-hour span, posts another picture of her daughter in pajamas, looking like she's shining her shoes, like Orphan Annie and Miss Hannigan. I mean, the woman is literally hitting self-destruct on everything.
Crunched the numbers and worked out that it's not only the was never business that is crashing, it links directly with the crash in Meghan's US popularity. Like in the past, People magazine may have been able to say, oh, well, actually, the Brits don't like Meghan, but we have an audience that does like Meghan. Well, not if you look at the new figures that Jack Royston has revealed in Newsweek. Newsweek, formerly an ally of the Sussexes, has revealed that not only are visits to the as ever, or was never, as Lady Colin Campbell calls it, website, down, so too is her overall popularity in America, which means this whole mission has been a disaster. Why this means People magazine is now becoming the official propaganda outfit for Harry and Meghan to quite a ludicrous extent.
And the fact that People magazine ignores the actual truth and the evidence that is out there to show that Harry and Meghan are not doing great across any areas, but they continue this manufactured pumping out of these articles. It's like they bought the gold package and they're going to continue to keep pumping it out.
Meghan as a devoted mother, Meghan as a supportive wife, Meghan as a successful entrepreneur, and Meghan as a resilient public figure facing constant misunderstanding. That consistency has fueled a growing online debate. At what point does repeated positive coverage stop looking like traditional celebrity reporting and start looking like image reinforcement? One example frequently mentioned by critics was a feature centered on Meghan's coastal-inspired kitchen aesthetic, highlighting decorative pieces and design choices. Supporters viewed it as harmless celebrity lifestyle content. Critics, however, argued that it presented an idealized image designed to sell a lifestyle rather than examine reality. As the debate continues, some commentators have gone even further, suggesting that Meghan's media strategy relies heavily on selective visibility, frequent exposure through carefully controlled lifestyle stories, while more difficult or controversial subjects receive far less attention. Whether that criticism is fair remains a matter of opinion. What is not a matter of opinion is that the discussion has become louder, and as questions about media coverage continue to grow, they are now colliding with something much harder to dismiss. The data suggesting that public interest in Meghan Markle may be moving in the opposite direction of her media visibility. For years, Meghan Markle's image in America has been described in a very specific way. Not exactly politically powerful, but still culturally visible. She was the kind of figure who could spark headlines, arguments, and non-stop media chatter, even when no major project was being released. That visibility was often treated like proof of stability. Love her or criticize her, Meghan still stayed in the conversation. But recent polling data suggests something deeper may be changing, and this time, it is not just a vibe, it is measurable. According to YouGov's rolling sentiment tracking in the United States, Meghan Markle's approval ratings moved sharply between late 2025 and early 2026. In fact, the shift marks one of the clearest short-term changes in how Americans view her since she stepped away from royal duties. In the third quarter of 2025, Meghan had a 37% favorable rating and a 22% unfavorable rating. That gave her a net approval score of plus 15. Those numbers were not sky high, but they still put her in positive territory. More Americans viewed her favorably than unfavorably, and the gap was wide enough to make her public image look fairly steady. At that point, the pattern was familiar, a famous public figure with a mixed reputation, but one that still looked manageable. By the first quarter of 2026, that picture had changed fast. The same tracking system recorded Meghan at 29% favorable and 27% unfavorable. That pushed her net approval down to just plus 2. On paper, that is a 13-point drop in net approval in only 2 quarters. In polling terms, that kind of movement matters because it shows 2 things happening at once. First, the gap between people who support her and people who disapprove of her has tightened. That means the public is now much more evenly split.
Look at this. Meghan Markle hiked in the podiatrist-approved sneakers shoppers say feel comfortable. Now, she wore this once. She wore these sneakers once in Australia. Royally Sage pointed out Rachel is reduced to being an influencer. That is an embarrassing drop from being a working royal. Call it what it is. A celebrity image management platform disguised as reporting. People magazine has devolved into a captive mouthpiece for Meghan Markle's image rehabilitation machine. The archive speaks for itself. This is coming directly from Harry and Meghan. Sometimes Prince Harry is actually emailing this publication direct. The same stories recycled in slightly different packaging. The formula never changes. Meghan Markle, the devoted mother. Meghan, the loving wife. Meghan, the visionary entrepreneur. Meghan, the misunderstood figure. Meghan, the resilient success story. Different headline, identical narrative. People magazine has published an astonishing volume of Meghan Markle articles just in 2026 alone. Not major interviews, not award wins, not blockbuster projects, not cultural moments that actually dominated headlines. Instead, readers get a relentless cycle of product launches, Instagram recaps, outfit breakdowns, sweet family nods, vacation glimpses, and glowing lifestyle features. Month after month, there appears to have been a decline in her US popularity at broadly the same time as a significant drop in US visitors to her website. Correlation does not imply causation, and the overlap may be coincidental. And I understand why he's put that in, but let's be honest, it's not.
Second, the speed of the change suggests this was not some slow background fade. It looks more like a concentrated period where people started reassessing her image. The YouGov method also matters here. Because it uses rolling tracking, responses are collected over time instead of relying on one single poll taken during one news cycle. That means the quarterly results are not just tied to one dramatic headline or one messy controversy. Instead, they reflect a wider pattern of opinion building across several months. In plain terms, the drop does not appear to be about one bad day. It points to a broader shift in perception. What makes this even more noticeable is the direction of both numbers. Meghan's favorable rating did not just fall, her unfavorable rating also rose. That combination is important because it suggests the situation is not simply about people losing interest or tuning out. It points to a more negative balance forming around her public image. The data does not prove why this happened, but the timing has raised eyebrows because it lines up with a period where Meghan remained highly visible through lifestyle coverage, brand updates, and constant conversation about her post-royal business moves. During that same stretch, she was still appearing across lifestyle features, business stories, and media chatter about where her commercial brand was heading next. So, the uncomfortable question becomes obvious. If visibility was supposed to help, why did the numbers move the other way? Still, polling alone does not tell the whole story. Public sentiment does not automatically measure sales, customer behavior, or brand strength. That is where the second dataset enters the picture, and this one is tied directly to Meghan's lifestyle venture, As Ever. Web traffic analytics connected to As Ever show a similar downward movement among U.S. visitors. And that matters because the United States remains the brand's key confirmed market. So, when American traffic slides, people notice. In December, As Ever reportedly recorded around 246,000 total visits, with roughly 108,000 coming from the United States. Since the U.S. is the brand's main operating market, that American audience was the most important traffic segment. It was the group most closely connected to possible customer activity. At that stage, American users made up a strong share of engagement, giving the brand a real base to build from. But then January arrived, and the numbers started telling a more complicated story. Overall visits increased slightly to about 268,000, which suggested there was still curiosity around the brand. But U.S. traffic dropped to around 89,000. That was the first clear warning sign, because the traffic that mattered most commercially was already slipping. That split between total visits and American engagement became an early red flag. People may have been looking from different places, but the market most likely to buy was moving downward. In February, the pattern continued. Total visits dropped to around 213,000, while U.S. traffic fell again to about 83,500. This time, both numbers moved down together, making the trend harder to brush off as a random correction. Then March brought a partial bounce in overall visibility, with total visits rising to around 226,000. But
they don't bring in an income. They've got no career. They've got no big deals. They've got no big contracts. They've got nothing left to bring in the big bucks. None of the other streaming services after Netflix, made them free, seem to be interested in coming in and swooping them up in a contract. You've not heard anything from like Disney, Paramount, and Amazon. Nope. Amazon, there's no chance. I think now she's really upset Sanchez. But yeah, I'm struggling to see how they're going to continue to bring in the sort of money to have the lifestyle that they quite clearly want.
She's decided not to use her name as the brand, but people hate the Was Never brand. So it's very, very difficult. And then she should start again. And she should start again with the Meghan Markle fashion and beauty brand. But again, I struggle to see how it's going to work.
Harry and Meghan do not have that sort of money. They do not have that sort of likability. They have got no talent between them. They've got no job. Harry being the chimpo at Better Up, he's hardly going to be raking in the millions. He can't even fill, 150 bottoms on seats over in Australia. Meghan couldn't even get, that venue. Everything you had to endure growing up in the royal family, everything Meghan had to endure because of the horrible, wicked royal family. And then obviously Harry and Meghan are like, we want to be treated like royals again. We would like to be, allowed back in. We want the king to come to the Invictus Games. We want the royal family to be supporting us again.
The bigger issue remained the same. The American audience was not showing the kind of strong rebound that would calm the critics. That is why this story is getting louder. On one side, polling shows Meghan's public approval narrowing sharply. On the other side, traffic data suggests As Ever's U.S. engagement has also weakened during the same general period. One dataset does not prove the other. Poll numbers do not automatically explain website visits, and website visits do not explain public opinion. But when both are moving in the same direction at the same time, the optics become hard to ignore. For Meghan's defenders, this may simply be a normal dip, the kind every celebrity brand faces after an initial wave of curiosity. But for critics, it looks like something bigger. A polished media image staying loud while public interest and consumer attention quietly slip away. And that is the real tension in this whole story. Meghan may still be visible, but visibility is not the same as momentum. In America, the numbers now suggest that her image is no longer just controversial. It may be losing ground. However, the small March recovery did not fix the bigger problem. U.S. traffic only climbed to about 94,000, still far below the December baseline, and nowhere near enough to restore the earlier level of engagement. That brief pause in the decline did not last. By April, the steepest drop in the sequence appeared. Total visits fell sharply to around 178,000, while U.S. traffic dropped to about 61,500. Compared with December's U.S. figure of 108,000, that is a major slide, close to being cut in half. Across the full 5-month stretch, the pattern becomes hard to brush off. The brand started with more than 100,000 U.S. visitors, then moved through a series of declines with only small bumps along the way, before landing far below where it began. What makes this pattern especially important is the market focus, as Ever is not operating like a wide global retail machine. At this stage, its main confirmed consumer base is the United States. That means U.S. traffic is not some side number. It is the number that matters most. International visits may still show curiosity, but they do not carry the same commercial weight if those visitors cannot directly buy from the brand. So, when U.S. engagement drops, critics argue it cuts straight into the heart of the business model. Viewed month by month, each shift could be explained away as normal early brand movement. New brands rise, dip, and bounce all the time. But when the numbers are lined up across the full period, the direction starts looking much clearer. By April, the gap between the strongest month and the weakest month became both visually and numerically serious.
But actually, this is really fascinating because it's like massive dip in US popularity, massive dip in US website traffic, all at the same time. A drop like that is huge and quick. Like usually you'll tend to see like maybe up a couple of points, down a couple of points, depending on people say have had a big movie out or if they've been involved in a big story. But a 13-point decline over 2 quarters. Trust me, this is what like a PR expert would say required a reputational crisis management intervention. The problem is, I think that's been tried so often by Meghan. However, if the trend persists, it is likely to draw attention from Meghan's team as they plan their future marketing strategy.
Harry and Meghan operate on PR. They need to get stories out there to tell the world that they're doing great, even though everything is quite clearly and obviously crumbling down around them.
From 108,000 U.S. visits in December down to 61,500 in April, the decline became a major talking point in discussions about whether Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand can keep people interested long term. That matters even more because this traffic decline appears during the same broad period when her public sentiment numbers also weakened. Nobody can honestly say one proves the other, but when public interest and brand traffic are both moving downward at the same time, people are going to notice. Beyond polls and website numbers, another question is now coming into focus. How strong is the actual structure behind Meghan's post-royal business plans? Right now, As Ever appears heavily centered on the U.S. market, with no fully established international rollout. That creates a narrow base. Instead of drawing from several major markets, the brand depends heavily on one audience segment. Inside that setup, declining U.S. engagement becomes more serious. It is not just a soft spot in the data, it affects the main consumer pipeline currently supporting the brand. At the same time, there has been ongoing chatter about possible expansion into broader lifestyle categories, including fashion and beauty. On paper, that sounds ambitious, but in practice, it brings a tricky problem. How do you scale a brand when the core engagement numbers are already moving down? That creates a mismatch between big growth plans and shaky audience momentum. In business terms, that is where things can get messy fast. The situation has drawn comparisons to other celebrity-backed brands that needed deep pockets, outside investment, and years of rebuilding before becoming stable. One example often brought up is Victoria Beckham's fashion business, which reportedly went through years of financial support and restructuring before reaching a stronger position. The difference, critics say, comes down to scale and backing. Fashion and beauty brands often need long-term investment, major partnerships, and the ability to survive losses before they turn into serious moneymakers. That raises a sharp question around, as ever, does it have the same level of structural support? Or is the public image doing more heavy lifting than the business foundation itself? Another issue is brand identity.
And I can't help but feel it's like when people buy a bumper pack of advertising. You want the billboard package that includes a magazine and a certain number of articles. You pay X amount of money, the VIP, the gold package, the bronze package.
The most recent headline says Meghan Markle's coastal kitchen has us eyeing rustic cake stands, floral plates, and more charming finds from $9. Now, can we just be honest about it? Because everyone knows their kitchen is gross. There's a reason why Meghan never uses their own kitchen for her TV show or her photo shoots, because it's dark, it's dingy, it's dated, and apparently it's the laughingstock of the Montecito locals. So for People magazine to say that actually people are wanting these floating wooden shelves, copper cookware, and bamboo spoons was a new low.
Anyone there that actually does any reporting and not really focus on the terrible things that have gone on with African parks and Harry still promoting them. How can they not talk about the fact that Harry is being sued by Centre Barley, but instead Harry and Meghan's life is great. Harry and Meghan's life is amazing. They know that kitchen that Meghan is posing in is not her kitchen. They know it was a hired house, yet there's still that article saying, oh, look at Meghan, everybody's so jealous of her coastal kitchen. That's not her kitchen. You know it's not her kitchen, but you're still pumping that out there. This manufactured nonsense, like you said, it is just pure Sussex propaganda, and they are ignoring the truth that everybody can see.
Celebrity businesses are not like regular retail launches. They are tied directly to the person at the center. When the celebrity's image rises, the brand can benefit. But when public perception gets rocky, the brand can feel the hit too. That creates a tight feedback loop. Public interest drives website traffic. Website traffic shapes the story of success. And that success, or lack of it, feeds right back into public interest. Inside that loop, falling engagement is not just business data anymore. It becomes part of the public narrative. There is also the question of segmentation. If Meghan moves into fashion or beauty, would those products sit under the As Ever name, or would they need a completely separate brand? That choice matters. If new products launch under As Ever, they inherit the recognition, but they also inherit the baggage. If they launch separately, Meghan has to build awareness all over again, in a market where attention is already scattered. For now, those questions remain open. Nothing here confirms what the next move will be. But the existing numbers have given critics plenty to work with. And that is why the central issue is no longer just one weak month or one bad data point. It is the direction of travel. Is this just a temporary dip, or is it the early sign of a deeper structural challenge for Meghan Markle's brand? That is the question getting louder now. Alongside the polling numbers and brand traffic data, another part of this debate is now getting serious attention. Media framing. And more specifically, the way Meghan Markle's image is being packaged across major lifestyle outlets. One of the biggest names being brought up again and again is People magazine. Throughout 2026, the publication has continued running a steady flow of Meghan-related coverage, but the focus is usually not hard-hitting reporting, major policy work, or deep business analysis. Instead, the stories lean heavily into lifestyle, fashion choices, home design, personal milestones, family moments, and carefully polished glimpses into Meghan's world. Across the year, critics say the pattern has become easy to spot. The headlines may change, but the framing often stays the same. Meghan Markle as a devoted mother. Meghan Markle as a supportive wife. Meghan Markle as a successful entrepreneur. Meghan Markle as the strong public figure trying to build a life after royalty. To supporters, that may sound like normal celebrity coverage. But to critics, the repetition is the whole issue. Their argument is not about one article or one headline. It is about the volume.
April was disastrous. It tanked 178,000 overall, but just 61,500 in the US. Now, remember, if you look at the start of the year, she was at 108,000. That's almost a halving of her internet traffic in the US, which is where she is selling to.
Everything that you tried to make a success has exploded. It's fallen apart. You failed at everything. You've burnt every single bridge. Now you're trying to sniff back around the royal family. And again, like we said earlier, you know, even the promoting and rewarding the trolls. Meghan and Harry have really been the masters of their own demise. And seeing these figures in real time, it is incredibly damaging because it's showing that everything is gone. They've pretty much hanging on tooth and nail to everything now. And I'd be very surprised if As Ever's got another 18 months in it, in all honesty. I can't see anyone's going to even want to try and buy it off of her, which I think is what she's desperately trying to do. She's trying to make it look like, look, I've sold over 1 million jars of jam. Look at all of the traffic. Look at all of these people. I think she's probably out there trying to scope around for some poor schmuck to try and buy it off of her. You know, like she sees these deals with other people, like Justin Bieber's wife. You know, she sold her makeup collection for millions, if not, you know, closer to 1 billion. But there's nothing As Ever. Who the hell would want to buy that shit?
And the issue that she's really got is that, so she has obviously decided, well, I need to go down the beauty path. I need to go down the fashion path, which she first rejected, right? Yeah. But Tash, what is going to be really difficult from a branding point of view, and this really matters, especially as you say, if you're trying to prepare a business to be sold, is like, does she launch that under As Ever, which is already a failed brand? Any branding expert would tell you no. But then the problem is she ends up competing with herself because she has one brand that's failing while trying to launch another bad brand. Meghan was liked by 29%.
The tone and the way the same message keeps coming back in slightly different packaging. According to public commentary tracking the coverage, People magazine has reportedly published well over 100 Meghan-focused pieces in 2026 alone. The topics may look different on the surface, from outfit breakdowns to kitchen style to lifestyle branding, but critics argue the structure underneath barely changes. Same image, new headline, same message, new angle. That has opened up a bigger debate about lifestyle media and celebrity image making. When coverage is repeatedly positive, where does entertainment journalism end and image polishing begin? Supporters of People's approach say this is simply what the audience wants. Meghan is a high-interest public figure, and lifestyle publications cover high-interest public figures. In that view, there is nothing strange about regular features on her clothes, home, brand, or personal life. But critics see it differently. They point to what they describe as a lack of balance. If the tone stays soft, flattering, and carefully controlled over time, they argue the line between reporting and reputation management starts to get blurry. And this is where the timing makes the whole thing even more awkward. This media discussion is happening while Meghan's polling numbers have softened and As Ever's US traffic has moved downward. The coverage is loud, but the data is not exactly glowing. Now, media coverage does not directly prove why poll numbers change. It also does not automatically explain why website traffic rises or falls. But media does help shape the environment around a public figure. It tells audiences what to focus on, what to admire, and what to ignore. That is why lifestyle coverage has become part of the bigger picture. It sits inside the same ecosystem as public opinion, brand performance, and repeated narrative building across platforms. There is another layer too. Celebrity stories today often do not stay in one place. Similar articles get picked up, repackaged, rewritten, and pushed across different outlets. One small lifestyle detail can become several different headlines across the internet. That creates a loop where visibility keeps getting reinforced, even when there is not much new substance behind it. And once that happens, the question is no longer just,
and Harry can't afford to keep pumping in. the millions
they
and
don't.
millions, because they're going
They
through
don't
the
bring in
inheritance
income.
money.
Her popularity has been in free fall because everybody knew that it would happen. There were so many people that predicted it, and they're right.
Meghan Markle's popularity among Americans fell in the first 3 months of 2026, at the same time as visits to her as ever online shop also dipped. These figures represent a sharp drop from the third quarter of 2025. Meghan recorded around 246,000 visitors to the site, of which 108,000 were from the US. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because she's only selling to the US. So it means she's getting well over 100,000 visits that actually are irrelevant to her business proposition. It might be people like me who are looking a bit nosily and saying, oh, ha, 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 isn't that funny, this latest message or whatever, but they're not buying product. But, and this is a huge but, US visits fell to 89,000, indicating that the US traffic declined despite an overall increase in visits. And Meghan, I repeat, is only selling to America, which means that her sort of customer base has actually dipped to 89,000. Remember, the vast majority of those people will not be buying anything. And of course, what she probably should do is shutter as never. It should just go as ever. Sorry, was never, as Lady C calls it. It should just go. It should just be shuttered. It should just be consigned to the to the trash heap. She should give away, Tash, the millions of cans of jam, what do you call tins of jam? She should give them away to worthy causes. Seriously, she should send them to Africa. She should just, she should take the financial hit.
Africa has been through enough, Dan. They've been through enough. Meghan oversaturated us. She was everywhere. It was every week. It was magazine interviews. It was as ever. It was Netflix. It was specials. It was appearances and pap strolls. Then, of course, we had, the disaster tourism. It has been relentless. And then for them to also, which I think has definitely damaged them, for them to suddenly flip back round and trying to be taken seriously as royals again has backfired on epic proportions, because they have then lost another chunk of their remaining fan base. And the outside traffic, it's people like myself. It's people on social media going to have a look at what videos she's dropped to see what silliness she's done now. Is she stroking herself? Is she eyeing up, a fictional man in the background as she slaps some sauce into a jar? I mean, she's become rather comical.
What did one magazine publish? The bigger question becomes, why does the same image keep showing up everywhere? That is why critics are now looking beyond individual stories and focusing on consistency over time. The issue is not one glowing profile. It is the repeated framing, the repeated themes, and the repeated attempt to keep one polished version of Meghan in front of the audience. When all of these layers come together, the picture becomes harder to ignore. Media output, public sentiment, and commercial engagement are now being discussed side by side, and the story is not built on one source or one messy headline. It is built on several streams of information moving at once. On one side, YouGov sentiment tracking shows Meghan's US approval rating narrowing between late 2025 and early 2026. On another side, as ever traffic data shows US-based engagement dropping from its December high into the spring months. And on the media side, lifestyle coverage continues to keep Meghan highly visible with steady, positive framing. Each piece can be explained separately. Polling can shift. Website traffic can dip. Celebrity coverage can repeat itself. But when all three are lined up together, they create a much sharper timeline. Visibility remains high, but audience momentum may be weakening. And that is the real twist. Meghan is still being talked about. She is still being covered. She is still being presented as polished, stylish, and successful. But the numbers suggest the public may not be responding with the same energy. What happens next is the real question. This could be a temporary dip, the kind every celebrity brand faces. Or it could be the start of a longer-term shift in how American audiences engage with Meghan Markle's public image and business ventures. For now, the polling, the traffic data, and the media coverage are all being read together. And that alignment is exactly why this story is gaining heat. If you want daily breakdowns of stories like this with the latest updates, numbers, and developments as they drop, make sure to subscribe to Palace Secrets. New videos go up every day covering the latest in real time. No filler, just the biggest updates and the details that actually matter.